In the mountains of San Miguel de los Cruces, Mexico, during the winter of 1678. The archives of the Inquisition recorded a case that was immediately classified as eternal secret. 8 skeletons of children had been found buried under quicklime, beneath the altar of a convent that for 30 years had been considered a sanctuary of Christian charity. But what truly horrified Father Inquisitor Fernando de Mendoza were not the bones themselves, but the discovery that the other 12 children in the orphanage had witnessed everything, and had kept silent for years out of something far more terrifying than fear itself. This channel is not for everyone, the narrator whispers. Only for the bravest souls who dare to uncover the darkest secrets of our history. If you've made it this far, you are not like most people. Before continuing the story of the Convent of Santa Clara del Socorro, subscribe, because few dare to reveal what we're about to uncover today. And tell us in the comments from which city or country you're listening. You'll become part of the select group who knows these secrets buried for centuries. The Convent of Santa Clara del Socorro rose like a fortress of volcanic stone against the snow-capped mountains of San Miguel de los Cruces, a small mining town 2 days on horseback from Mexico City. It was February of 1678, and the icy wind that swept down from the peaks carried with it the scent of pine. And something else, something the villagers preferred not to identify, when they passed near the convent walls at dusk. For 20 years, Mother Superior Esperanza de la Santísima Trinidad had run the convent. A 60-year-old woman with a sharp face and eyes so pale they looked like ice. She had transformed Santa Clara del Socorro into the most respected orphanage in the entire region. 20 children lived permanently within its walls. 12 in the East Wing, where they received education and religious training, and 8 in the West Wing, reserved for what the Mother Superior called special cases. But on that February morning, when Father Inquisitor Don Fernando de Mendoza rode through the main gate on his black horse, something changed forever in Santa Clara del Socorro. His leather boots echoed against the stones of the central courtyard, as the nuns lined up in silence, their white habits stark against the tall, shadow-casting walls. Mother Esperanza stepped forward to greet him. But Mendoza noticed something at once, something that unsettled him deeply. Not only were her hands trembling, but the 12 children from the East Wing stood aligned like little soldiers, their eyes fixed on the ground, their bodies unnaturally rigid, as if carved out of marble. Mother Superior, Mendoza said in his grave, commanding voice, "I have come because of the reports." The silence that followed was so profound that one could hear the dripping of melting icicles from the roof. 20 nuns held their breath, but not all for the same reasons. And the 12 children did not move a single muscle. Among the sisters stood Sister Soledad, a 45-year-old nun, responsible for the main orphanage. Her dark eyes reflected an anguish that had been growing for months. Beside her, Sister Esperanza, a young woman of only 25, watched with genuine confusion, unable to understand why the air had suddenly grown so tense. And in the far corner, half hidden in shadow, Sister Remedios, 55, was gripping her hand so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. "What reports?" asked Mother Superior. But her voice came out sharper than she intended. Mendoza drew a parchment from his black tunic. Unauthorized night rituals. The cries of children echoing in the early hours. And something even more disturbing. His gaze locked with hers. 8 families have come asking about their sons and daughters. Children they entrusted to you, who, according to your records, were transferred to other convents. But when I investigated those convents..." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. They had never arrived. It was then that one of the children, the youngest, no more than 6, lifted his eyes from the floor for the briefest moment. In that fleeting glance, Mendoza saw something that chilled him to the bone. Pure terror. Not the innocent fear of a frightened child, but the horror of someone who had seen things no human being should ever witness. The investigation began at once. Father Fernando de Mendoza, a 50-year-old man hardened by decades of unmasking heresies, had developed an almost supernatural instinct for detecting fear. And in Santa Clara del Socorro, fear was thick enough to be cut with a knife. "Show me the orphanage records," he ordered. That was when he noticed the first crack in the convent's perfect facade. Sister Soledad hesitated. Her eyes darted toward the Mother Superior, then toward the children, and finally to the floor. "The records are in the scriptorium, Father," she murmured. "Are they?" Mendoza asked, catching the strange inflection in her tone. "Yes, Father. They're up to date." That phrase, "up to date," hung in the air like a confession. The records of an orphanage were not meant to be updated. They were written once, permanent and unchanging. A testament to truth, not revision. As they walked toward the scriptorium, Mendoza observed the children discreetly. They moved in a perfect line, no whispers, no laughter. None of the spontaneous life one expects from children. But the most disturbing detail was that each time they passed near the West Wing, they unconsciously quickened their steps and avoided looking at the shuttered windows. Inside the scriptorium, the flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. Mendoza spread the parchments over the oak table, his trained eye scanning the entries with the precision of a hunter following a trail. "Here it says," he murmured, "that Pedro Morales, 8 years old, was transferred to the convent of San Francisco in Puebla on the 15th of July, 1667. He traced the line with his finger, then held the parchment up toward the candlelight. But look at this. The ink is different. This entry was written long after the previous ones." Sister Soledad bit her lip until it bled. Beside her, Sister Esperanza watched with wide, frightened eyes, realizing for the first time that something terrible was surfacing from the shadows of their holy home. "Where's Pedro Morales?" Mendoza demanded. He left with the other children," stammered the Mother Superior. "What other children?" Silence spread through the room like a dark stain. Then came a sound that froze everyone in place. A soft, strangled sob. One of the children from the East Wing had begun to cry. It wasn't the ordinary crying of a sad child. It was the muffled sob of someone reliving a nightmare. "Carlitos," whispered Sister Soledad as she knelt beside him. "What's wrong, my boy?" The 8-year-old slowly lifted his head. His eyes were glassy, filled with terror. Is Pedro coming back?" he asked in a trembling whisper. "Like Maria did that night?" Mother Superior Esperanza turned pale. Sister Remedios shut her eyes as if struck by a physical blow. And Sister Soledad began to weep silently, tears she had been holding back for months. "What do you mean, Maria came back?" Mendoza asked, kneeling so his eyes were level with the boys. But before Carlitos could answer, Mother Superior's voice cut through the air, sharp, defensive. "The children have nightmares. They don't know what they're saying." "I do," whispered another voice among the children. It was Anna, a 10-year-old girl, with eyes far too old for her face. "We all do." But Mother Superior says that if we talk about the special children, we'll become special too. The testimonies of the children from the East Wing revealed a truth far more complex and horrifying than Mendoza had imagined. These 12 children were not merely innocent bystanders. They were silent witnesses to a system of terror carefully orchestrated for 5 years. Tell me about the special children, Mendoza asked gently, while the Mother Superior glared daggers at Anna. They were the different ones, Anna whispered, trembling. The ones with marks on their faces. Or who couldn't walk right. Or who screamed at night. Mother Superior said they had demons inside them. And what happened to them? They were taken to the West Wing. At first we heard them during the day. Playing, crying sometimes. But after a while. Anna's voice cracked. After a while, we stopped hearing them at all. Carlito stepped closer, his voice barely audible. Mother Superior told us they were getting better. That the demons were leaving their bodies. That's why they screamed so much at night. You heard the screams? Asked Mendoza quietly. Every night, Anna admitted. But we couldn't go see them. The West Wing was forbidden. Sister Remedios locked all the doors after dinner. Sister Soledad spoke at last, her voice trembling. I told the children that those were special prayers, she said softly. That their friends were learning difficult prayers to heal themselves. But you knew the truth, Mendoza pressed. I suspected, she whispered, covering her face with her hands. My God, I suspected. But it was easier to believe the lie than to face the truth. That was when Anna revealed something that froze the blood of everyone present. One night, about 6 months ago, she said, Maria came back. The air in the scriptorium thickened like syrup. Mendoza felt his heart quicken. What do you mean, she came back? Maria had a big mark on her arm, Anna explained, speaking with the chilling precision of someone who had witnessed something unforgettable. They took her to the West Wing in January. We stopped hearing her voice after 2 weeks. But one night in March, while we were sleeping, we heard our door open, very slowly. Carlitos took Anna's hand, helping her continue. It was Maria. But she looked different. So thin, and her eyes were huge. She came to my bed and whispered, Tell everyone not to scream when they come for you. It hurts less if you don't scream. Mendoza swallowed hard. What happened next? Sister Remedios found her, Anna said. She took her back to the West Wing. We heard her crying, apologizing. All the way down the hall. The next morning, Mother Superior told the children that they had suffered a collective nightmare. That Maria had gone to heaven. And that the demons were trying to confuse them by sending false visions. Mother Superior's face had turned ghostly pale. Finally, she exploded. Enough. These children have corrupted minds. They don't know what they're saying. But Mendoza wasn't listening to her anymore. His eyes were on the 12 children. On their faces, etched with a terrible wisdom. The kind that comes only from seeing the unimaginable. How many special children were there? He asked Anna. She counted on her fingers, her voice steady despite her fear. Pedro, Maria, Santiago, Carmen, Lupita, Miguel, Rosa, and Joaquin. 8 in total. All went to the West Wing. And none returned. Anna hesitated. Maria did that night. But the next day, there was nothing, no sound from her room. Mendoza straightened slowly, feeling the weight of truth settle over him like a tombstone. Take me to the West Wing, he ordered. The west wing of the convent of Santa Clara del Socorro was a world entirely different from the rest of the building. While the east wing was filled with sunlight, the sound of recited prayers and the laughter of children, the west was buried in sepulchral silence. A silence so dense it seemed to swallow the echo of every step. The doors were secured with forged iron locks. And yet what disturbed Mendoza most were the modifications made to the rooms. The windows had been sealed from the inside, leaving only narrow slits for air to pass through. The doors had new locks, placed on the outside, and thin openings, just wide enough to slide in food or take out an empty plate. When were these changes made? Mendoza asked, running his hand along the bricks that blocked one of the windows. 5 years ago, admitted Sister Remedios, her voice trembling under the weight of questioning. When we began the special purification program. Mendoza turned sharply. Mother Superior, who until then had stood like a statue of cold stone, finally spoke. The children marked by the devil required total isolation, so that the process of spiritual cleansing could be effective. Contact with others could contaminate the ritual. Mendoza opened the first door. Inside was a bare cell, a wooden cot, a crucifix nailed to the wall, and an overpowering odor of disease and despair that had seeped into the stones themselves. But what struck him most were the marks on the walls. Deep scratches made by tiny fingernails, words scrawled in charcoal, and dark stains he refused to identify. "I'm hungry," was written in one corner in a trembling child's hand. "Mom, come for me," said another. "I can't walk," was scratched near the floor. In the next cell, he found something that made his blood turn to ice. A small, improvised diary, written on the torn margins of prayer books. The handwriting belonged to Maria, the girl who had returned that night in March. The diary was fragile, its pages yellowed and stiff with dried tears. By candlelight, Mendoza began to read, each line dragging him deeper into the pit of horror. Day 1. They brought me here because of the mark on my arm. Mother Superior says it looks like a demon. She told me they'll heal me with special prayers. I don't understand why I can't stay with the other children. Day 5. I am very hungry. They only give me salted water and a tiny piece of bread. Sister Remedios says that hunger weakens the demons. Day 12. I don't have much strength left to write. I can hear the other children playing outside. Sometimes I scream so they'll hear me. But no one ever comes. Day 18. I think I'm dying. My mark has faded because I'm so thin. But Mother Superior says that means the demon is leaving me. Day 23. Last night I left my room. I don't know how, but the door was open. I went to see the others to say goodbye. Carlitos was so scared when he saw me. I think I don't look like a normal girl anymore. Day 24. They punish me for leaving. Now the door has 2 locks. I can't write anymore. My hands tremble too much. The diary ended there. But on the final page, written in a faint, shaking hand, Maria had added one last line. If someone finds this, tell my mother that I tried to be good. Mendoza had to stop reading to keep from vomiting. In 30 years of investigating heresies and crimes in the name of faith, he had never encountered cruelty so systematic, so cold, so methodical. How long were the children kept in these rooms, he asked, though a part of him already knew the answer. As long as necessary to complete their purification, replied Mother Superior. Her tone so calm it bordered on obscene. Some were purified in 20 days, others in 40. The most tainted by the devil needed 50 days. After that, their souls rose clean to heaven, freed from the corruption that would have doomed them. The most terrifying room in the West Wing was the very last one at the end of the corridor. When Mendoza forced the door open, the smell of death hit him like a physical blow. And what he found inside would remain burned into his memory for the rest of his life. On the small wooden cot lay the remains of a little girl, still dressed in a white nightgown, her body curled up in a fetal position. "Maria," whispered Sister Soledad, collapsing to her knees. Mendoza stepped closer, forcing himself to examine the scene. The girl had not died of starvation like the others. Around her neck were bruises, marks of strangulation. "Explain," he demanded, turning to Mother Superior. "What truly happened the night Maria came back?" For the first time, the old woman's composure cracked. Her hands trembled, her voice lost its usual icy calm. She became troublesome," she stammered. "The purification wasn't working. Instead of surrendering to God's will, she grew defiant, desperate. That night, she managed to force open her door. We don't know how. It should have been impossible for a child so weak." She stopped suddenly, realizing she had said too much. "Continue," Mendoza ordered. "She went to the dormitory," Mother Superior admitted. "She woke the other children. She told them things that could corrupt their pure souls. She said we were killing the special children, that she was starving, that she needed help." Mendoza's face hardened. "So you couldn't allow the other children to know the truth?" "She was innocent," cried Mother Superior, her voice breaking. "We couldn't let her poison the others with her lies. She had to be silenced before she destroyed everything." "So you killed her," Mendoza said flatly. "We freed her," she shouted. "Her body was too contaminated to be purified by normal means. It was an act of divine mercy." Sister Remedios, who had been weeping silently, finally spoke. Her words trembling like leaves in a storm. I held her hands," she sobbed, "while Mother Superior did it. God forgive me, Maria fought so hard. Her eyes, they still haunt me." Mendoza straightened slowly, his face pale with disgust. "And the other 7 children," he asked. "Did they complete their purification naturally?" Mother Superior hesitated, then lied. "Yes." "No," came a small voice from the doorway. It was Anna, the 10-year-old girl, who had disobeyed orders to stay in the East Wing. "They didn't complete anything. They all died screaming. They all died hungry. They all died calling for their mothers." "Go back to your room," shouted Mother Superior. But Anna no longer felt fear. After 5 years of forced silence, the truth burst from her like water from a broken dam. Pedro died in room 3. He cried every night because his leg hurt. Santiago died in room 5, he was only 4. Carmen died in room 2, she was my friend, before they took her. "How do you know all this?" asked Mendoza. "Because sometimes, when Sister Remedios forgot to lock the hallway door, we came to listen," Anna whispered. "We knew our friends were in there. We knew something terrible was happening." Anna's confession broke the dam. One by one, the other children from the East Wing appeared in the hallway, like little ghosts finally brave enough to confront the nightmares that had haunted them for years. Carlitos, the 8-year-old boy, walked toward the cell where Pedro had died. One night, he said quietly, "I heard Pedro calling my name. I wanted to help him. But Sister Soledad told me I was dreaming." "You weren't dreaming," Soledad admitted through tears. "I heard him too. We all did. But we were afraid. So afraid of Mother Superior that we pretended nothing was happening." Dawn found Mendoza standing in the convent courtyard, surrounded by parchment sheets covered with ink. The confessions of horror unlike anything he had heard in 30 years serving the Inquisition. But what marked him the most were not the words of the nuns. It was the testimonies of those 12 surviving children who had lived for 5 long years under the constant shadow of terror, knowing that at any moment they could be the next to disappear into the West Wing. "How did you keep them silent for so long?" Mendoza asked the Mother Superior, who now sat on a stone bench with her hands bound. "It was easy," she said with a chilling smile. "We taught them that speaking of the special children was a mortal sin. That if they revealed the convent's secrets, they too would become special." The smile that followed froze Mendoza's blood. "The fear of becoming victims," she said, "turned them into silent accomplices. They didn't torment those children." Mendoza said bitterly. "You did?" "We trained them," she hissed, losing control. "We prepared them to be perfect witnesses of God's will." Those 12 children learned invaluable lessons in obedience, silence, and unbreakable faith. Mendoza turned to look at the children, huddled together in a corner of the courtyard, under the watch of Sister Esperanza. Even now, after confessing everything, they remained close, instinctively seeking safety in numbers. Like small animals that had learned, survival depended on not being seen. "Tell me exactly how you killed those children," Mendoza demanded. The Mother Superior's full confession lasted 3 hours. It revealed a system of psychological and physical torture, so calculated, so perverse, that even the Inquisition's darkest archives had nothing to compare to it. "The special children," she began, "were subjected to a gradual process of fasting, isolation, and spiritual correction. The first week," she continued with almost clinical detachment, "was partial fasting. Only holy water and communion wafers. This weakened their bodies and their demonic defenses. The second week," she said, "was complete fasting, except for a few drops of salted water every 3 days. During that time, we held 6-hour exorcisms each night, forcing them to confess their demonic sins and renounce Satan. At first, they resisted," she said coldly. "They cried, begged to see their families, denied everything. But hunger and solitude broke them. By the 3rd week, they were willing to confess anything we wished to hear. And the 4th week..." Her eyes flickered with a grotesque glow. "The 4th week was the final purification. Only holy water, in the smallest amounts. They entered a spiritual delirium, where they could communicate directly with God. It was beautiful to see them transcend their flesh and rise toward divine purity." Mendoza had to pause, gripping the edge of the table, fighting back nausea. "How many survived 4 weeks?" he asked hoarsely. "None," replied the Mother Superior simply, as if stating the weather. Survival was never the goal. The goal was to free their souls from their corrupted bodies. Death was the moment of greatest glory, when they were finally reunited with God. "And what did you do with their bodies?" Mendoza pressed. "We buried them with honor in the crypt," she answered. Anointed them with sacred oils. Dressed them in white garments of purity. Each had a private ceremony, celebrating their ascension to heaven. Sister Remedios, who had listened in silence, finally broke down completely. "Oh, my God," she cried. "What have we become? I thought we were saving their souls. But hearing it now, we were monsters. Monsters disguised as saints." "Silence," roared the Mother Superior. "I will not let you taint our holy work with demonic doubt." But Sister Remedios could no longer stop. "I heard them every night," she sobbed. "I heard them begging for food, for their mothers, for one chance to live. And I told them it was God's will. May my soul burn for what we did." At that moment, Ana, the brave 10-year-old, approached Mendoza with something wrapped in cloth. He looked down at her trembling hands. "What is this?" he asked softly. "They're letters," Ana said. "Letters the special children wrote before they died. We found them hidden in their rooms when you were in the crypt." Mendoza carefully unfolded the first one. The handwriting was uneven, childlike. Each stroke a fragment of courage. "Dear Mama, Mother Superior says there's a demon in my lame leg, and that I must fast so it leaves me. I am very hungry. But I try to be brave, like you taught me. If I die, don't cry, because I'll be with the angels. Tell Papa I love him. Your son, Pedro." The second letter was from Carmen, addressed to her little sister, Rosa. "To my little Rosa. I hope you never come to this place. I hope your freckles never grow big enough for them to bring you here. Take care of Mama. And tell her I tried to be good until the end. I love you very much." One by one, Mendoza read all 8 letters. Each was a heartbreaking testament to children who faced death with a strength greater than that of most adults. Children who, even in their final hours, still wrote with love, still hoped to be forgiven. The last letter was from Miguel, the deaf-mute boy. "I cannot speak, but I can write. Mother Superior says the demon stole my voice. But I know God made me this way for a reason. Mama always said my hands are my voice. These are my last words with my hands. Forgive me for dying. Forgive me for not being normal. I love you so much it hurts more than hunger." Mendoza closed his eyes, feeling each word carve itself into his soul like hot iron. When he opened them again, the 12 surviving children were staring at him with a mixture of terror and fragile hope, as if waiting for this man of power to make sense of the horrors they had endured. "Why did you never tell anyone what was happening?" he asked Ana gently. "At first we tried," she replied. "When they took Pedro, Carlitos, and I told Sister Soledad that we heard him crying from the west wing. But she said we were lying, that Pedro had been transferred to another convent." Carlitos stepped forward, continuing the story. "Then, when they took Santiago, we tried to tell the visiting nuns. But Mother Superior always found out. She punished us. No food for 3 days. And said if we kept lying, we'd become special too." Ana lowered her eyes. "That scared us more than anything. Because all of us were different somehow. I have 6 toes on 1 foot. Carlito stutters when he's nervous. Luis has a scar on his forehead. Any of us could be next." Sister Soledad stepped forward, her face ravaged by guilt. "Father Mendoza," she said softly, I knew something was terribly wrong. But every time I tried to question it, Mother Superior reminded me of my vow of obedience. She told me that to question her authority was to question the will of God. And you believed her? Mendoza asked. I wanted to, Soledad whispered. It was easier than facing the possibility that we were committing atrocities in his name. Her voice broke. But at night, when I heard the screams from the West Wing, deep in my heart I knew we were allowing the murder of innocents. Mendoza wrote every word with trembling hands, his ink blotting the parchment. And then Anna spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Father, there's something else you should know about Maria. Mendoza looked up. What is it? The night she came back, Anna said. She didn't only tell us she was dying. She told us something about Mother Superior. Something that changed everything. What did she tell you? Maria said she heard Mother Superior and Sister Remedios talking in her room one night. They were arguing about how many more children needed to be purified before it was enough. Enough for what? Mendoza asked, his pulse quickening. To complete what they called the offering of the 8 innocents. Mendoza froze. Anna continued, her words spilling out like she had held them in for months. Maria said she saw Mother Superior reading from an old book, written in a strange language she didn't understand. But there were numbers. Specific numbers. Mendoza's heart began to race. What kind of numbers? 8 pure children, Anna said. Sacrificed during 8 consecutive full moons. In the 8th year of Mother Superior's leadership. Maria said that Mother Superior believed this would open a direct door to heaven for all the nuns in the convent. A chill ran down Mendoza's spine. What he had thought was religious fanaticism was now revealing itself as something much darker. A pagan ritual disguised as Christian devotion. Mother Superior had not been saving souls. She had been offering them. Following Anna's trembling finger, Mendoza and his assistants climbed the narrow staircase to the northern tower of the convent. There, behind a small private altar dedicated to the Virgin Mary, they discovered what would become the final piece of horror. Hidden inside a hollow panel was an ancient book, a grimorio, written in archaic Latin, its leather cover cracked and stained with age. When Mendoza opened it, the candles flickered as if the air itself recoiled. The pages described sacrificial rituals that predated Christianity by centuries. But what made his blood run cold were the notes in Spanish, handwritten in the margin, by none other than Mother Superior Esperanza. 8th moon, Miguelito completed his ascension. The portal strengthens. 7th moon, Rosa was purified beautifully. Only one more remains to complete the sacred cycle. 6th moon, Carmen resisted too much. We had to help her transcend early. Each ascension matched the death of a child. Each moon, a full moon. The 8 purifications had been carefully timed to coincide with lunar cycles. Mendoza's hands shook as he realized the truth. These children had not died from misguided faith. They had been systematically sacrificed as part of a heretical ritual the Mother Superior believed would grant her divine power. He returned to the courtyard, the grimorio clutched tightly in his hand. Why, he demanded, confronting her. Why 8 children? Why this ritual? For the first time, the mask of sanctity slipped completely from her face. Her eyes glazed with a fanatic gleam, and her voice rose with unholy conviction. "Because the Archangel Gabriel showed me the way," she cried. "He told me that if I offered 8 pure souls upon the altar of purification, he would open the gates of heaven and allow us all to ascend, body and soul." "That wasn't an angel," Mendoza shouted. "That was witchcraft." "No," she screamed, her voice echoing through the stone halls. "It was Gabriel himself, the same who appeared to the Virgin Mary. He chose me as his instrument. The 8 children did not die in vain. Their sacrifices would save us all." Mendoza finally understood the full magnitude of the madness. The Mother Superior had fallen into a religious psychosis, twisting fragments of scripture and heresy into a single delusional faith. She had taken a pagan text, rewritten it through her own divine hallucinations, and convinced the most devout sisters that they were part of a sacred miracle. What was supposed to happen after the 8th sacrifice? Mendoza demanded. Her eyes gleamed with feverish light. "We were to ascend, all of us. Every nun in this convent would rise into heaven, body and soul, as proof of God's eternal glory. The world would witness a miracle." Her laughter echoed through the tower, shrill, broken, triumphant. And in that sound, Mendoza knew that he was not standing before a woman of God, but before a soul utterly consumed by darkness. The official records of the Inquisition stated that the case of the convent of Santa Clara del Socorro was resolved with maximum discretion to avoid public scandal and heretical contamination. Mendoza's investigation revealed that the horror had been even more systematic and deliberate than anyone had first imagined. Mother Superior Esperanza de la Santísima Trinidad and Sister Remedios were handed over to secular authorities. During her secret trial, the Mother Superior insisted until the very end that she had only followed divine orders. She was declared a heretic and insane, and was executed by fire in a private ceremony in March of 1679. Sister Remedios, broken by guilt, confessed every detail of the tortures they had carried out. Her testimony filled 127 pages of the Inquisition's archives, one of the most disturbing records ever written. She died in prison before her execution, apparently of self-inflicted starvation, and what the physicians of the time called extreme mortal melancholy. The remaining nuns were scattered among convents across the viceroyalty, under strict orders never to speak of the case, on pain of excommunication. Sister Soledad was sent to a cloistered convent in Guadalajara, where she lived the rest of her life in silent penance. Records say she never spoke again, communicating only through gestures when absolutely necessary. Sister Esperanza, the youngest, returned to Spain and tried to rejoin religious life. But the memories of Santa Clara haunted her until death. Letters later found in the convent of Santa Teresa in Toledo reveal she became obsessed with helping orphans, as if trying to atone for the 8 she could not save. As for the 12 surviving children, their fates were perhaps the most tragic of all. Mendoza realized they had been traumatized beyond comprehension, living for years in fear, waiting for the day they would be taken to the West Wing. Ana, the brave 10-year-old who had revealed the truth, was adopted by a wealthy family in Mexico City, who had lost a daughter her age. Records say she adjusted well, but never slept alone again, and was tormented by recurring nightmares of voices calling her from locked rooms. Carlitos, the boy who once stuttered in fear, was sent to live with relatives in Puebla. He grew into a quiet man, a blacksmith by trade, a profession that allowed him to work with his hands and avoid conversation. Yet even in old age, he stammered uncontrollably whenever someone mentioned churches or convents. The other 10 children scattered across the colonies. Some developed extreme claustrophobia. Others became obsessively religious, trying to find in true faith a shield against the human demons they had met. And a few abandoned religion entirely, unable to reconcile a loving God with the horrors committed in His name. The convent was sealed and confiscated. The 8 bodies of the children were exhumed and buried in sacred ground in the main cemetery of San Miguel de los Cruces. Each grave bore a simple inscription: innocent before God, martyr of human madness. The west wing was sealed with lime and stone, but not before Mendoza ordered that the diaries and letters be preserved as evidence of what had happened there. They were stored in the secret archives of the Inquisition, where they remained hidden for centuries. Perhaps the most tragic fate, however, was that of Father Fernando de Mendoza himself. The confessions he had heard, the horrors he had seen, and the eyes of the surviving children scarred his soul beyond repair. He became obsessed with divine justice, investigating case after case of religious fanaticism, as if searching for an answer to how faith could turn into such monstrosity. His final writings, discovered after his death in 1695, revealed a man tormented by questions that have no simple answers. How many times, he wrote, have we mistaken madness for devotion? How many atrocities are committed each day by those who sincerely believe they serve the will of God? And then, in his final reflection, he wrote words that still echo through history. In Santa Clara del Socorro, I learned that the most terrible monsters do not wear horns or tails. They wear sacred habits, pray with genuine fervor, and sleep peacefully at night, convinced they are doing the work of the Almighty. He concluded with a vow, a promise to remember those whom the world would soon forget. The world will forget their names, as it forgets all innocents who die because of the madness of those who believe themselves chosen by God. But I will remember them. Pedro, Maria, Santiago, Carmen, Lupita, Miguel, Rosa, Joaquin. I will remember that they lived, that they loved, that they hoped, and that they died believing someone would come to save them. The story of the convent of Santa Clara del Socorro remains a chilling reminder that religious fanaticism can turn faith into madness and devotion into cruelty. It teaches us that the line between true belief and murderous insanity is thinner than we dare to admit, and that sometimes the darkest horrors in history are committed not out of malice, but out of the absolute conviction of serving a higher purpose. Yet among all that darkness, the voices of children like Ana and Carlitos shine like small, defiant candles, reminding us that even in the deepest night, someone will always find the courage to speak the truth,